Hello and welcome to Brain Power. I'm your host Thomas Trombley, and we'll be discussing topics ranging from current news, world events, and religion. Basically, whatever bit of news that catches my eye. If you have a story you'd like covered here or a question you'd like answered, send me a message on Twitter at BrainPowerUp. Use the hashtag BrainPowerUp, like the group at facebook.com/BrainPowerOnline, or visit the website at brainpoweronline.webs.com. Today's Sunday, May 31st, and got a bit of a story here that the story actually took place last Saturday, so I could have squeezed it in the last show, but I thought it would be better actually to wait at least a week just to see if there were any world-changing effects because of this story. It's official. Irish voters have resoundingly backed amending the Constitution to legalize gay marriage by 62.1% to 37.9%, The Guardian reports. The total vote, with a turnout of 60.5%, was 1,201,607 to 734,300. Gay couples hugged and kissed each other amid scenes of jubilation at counting centres and at the official results centre in Dublin Castle, whose cobblestone central square was open so thousands of revellers could sit in the sunshine and watch the results live on the big screen televisions. We're the first country in the world to enshrine marriage equality in our Constitution, and do so by popular mandate, says Leo Varadkar, a cabinet minister who came out as gay at the start of a government-led effort to amend Ireland's conservative Catholic constitution. That makes us a beacon, a light to the rest of the world of liberty and equality, he adds. Political analysts who have covered Irish referendums for decades agreed that today's emerging landslide marked a stunning generational shift from the 1980s, when voters still firmly backed Catholic Church teachings and voted against abortion and divorce. We're in a new country, says a political analyst who calls the result a tidal wave that produced gay marriage majorities in even the most traditionally conservative rural corners of Ireland. Those seeking a no outcome described their defeat as almost inevitable, given that all of Ireland's political parties and most politicians backed the legalization of homosexual unions. Once again, this is a story that really touched my heart a little bit, because as it says in the story, Ireland is now a beacon. They are a light to the rest of the world of liberty and equality. I can only hope for the day that gay marriage equality becomes a national law here in the United States. There are a few states here and there that have legalized it, but there's still a few states out there that are, well, to put it nicely, they're a long ways away from legalizing it. Which, would happen to be mostly states in the Bible Belt? Oh my goodness. But anyway, speaking of religion, and things that shock me, George W. Bush actually said something that I agreed with. And that just shocked me. Former President George W. Bush defended religious freedom during his commencement address at Southern Methodist University on Saturday, his first commencement address since leaving office in 2009. You can be hopeful because there is a loving God. Whether you agree with that statement or not is your choice. It's not your government's choice. Wow, W. That's that's a shock. Just to hear George W. Bush, the guy that said God told him to run for the presidency twice, saying that he's basically okay with atheists, with agnostics, with Muslims even, with Wiccans, with Jedi Knights, whatever you happen to be. You don't have to believe in God. It is essential to this nation's future that we remember that the freedom to our worship, that the freedom to worship who we want and how we want, or not worship at all, is a core belief of our founding. Bush's speech at the school that houses his presidential library, and where his wife, Laura Bush, is a trustee, comes as his brother Jeb is on the verge of a likely White House run. Jeb, the former Florida governor, faced difficult questions over his brother's invasion of Iraq earlier this week, including one from a college student who claimed that George W. Bush was responsible for the rise of the Islamic State. In his speech on Saturday, the 43rd president said he was optimistic about the future. I'm actually having a difficult time reading these quotes by W without saying it in like the stereotypical W voice. I'll try to read them straight. Some say America's best days are behind us, he said. I say, given our strengths, one of which is a bright new generation like you, these are not dark days. These are great days. Bush, who graduated from Yale with a C-plus average, also made fun of his mediocre academic record, telling students that they shouldn't let grades limit them. Those of you who are graduating this afternoon... Okay, you know, I have to do it as W. Those of you who are graduating this afternoon with high honors, awards, and distinctions, I say, well done. And as I like to tell the C students, you too can be president. Wow, that was actually not my best W. That was actually really poor W. But still, he goes on to say that, yes, the C students can be president as well. Yeah, he's right. They can be, but I don't know. But personally, if I had the choice between... I mean, let's just assume that we have two candidates. They are completely and perfectly equal in every way except one was a C-plus average and the other one graduated with honors. You know, I'm going to trust the guy that graduated with honors a little bit more, let's be honest. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Moving on. Speaking of stupid people. A new report by the National Science Foundation has found some alarming truths about the state of science education in the U.S. Researchers asked 2,200 Americans a very simple science question. Does the Earth go around the Sun, or does the Sun go around the Earth? You know, I got to interrupt the story for a second here. You know, personally, and I'd always known that there were still some people out there that, that thought that the sun traveled around the Earth. Same way there are still some people out there who believe the Earth is flat. I find it very difficult to comprehend that level of stupidity, but you know, these people exist. That's a plain and simple fact. Anyway, once again, I thought it was only like 5%, but shockingly, 1 in 4 believed that the sun orbits the Earth. 25%. Holy crap. Wow, that's a special kind of stupid. I mean, to be fair, that's only 25% of the 2,200 people that they asked. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows what the real answer is? I would like to think that nationally and really globally, I would like to think that more than 75% of the world knows the truth and says that, yeah, no, the Earth orbits the sun, not the other way around. Anyway, to put this scientific understanding in perspective, the idea that the Earth and planets revolve around the sun has been accepted by scientists and much of the civilized world since the 16th century. Over 400 years later, A quarter of Americans still haven't found this fact out. According to a press release about the survey, many participants failed to answer even the most basic astronomy and science questions. The worrying findings include that 61% refute the Big Bang, answering false when asked if the universe began with a huge explosion. 52% oppose evolution, denying that human beings as we know them today developed from earlier species of animals. And a whopping 70% felt that government funding for science was adequate or too generous. Wow! That's just plain... It's ignorance and stupidity on some of the highest levels. It really hurts to think of this. Anyway, while the survey was carried out back in 2012, the results were only presented on Friday at an annual meeting of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Held in Chicago, the meeting is conducted every 2 years and issues a National Science Foundation report to the president and lawmakers. At the same meeting, a comparison of the views of scientists and members of the public on key issues such as energy, GM foods, and vaccinations revealed an astonishing gulf. When asked, is it safe to eat genetically modified foods? 88% of scientists said yes, whereas only 37% of the average U.S. adult population said yes. Is climate change mostly due to human activity? 87% of scientists said yes, whereas only 50% of average citizens said yes. Have humans evolved over a long period of time? 98% of scientists said yes, whereas only 65% of average adults said yes. Are you in favor of more offshore drilling? 32% of scientists said yes, whereas 52% of average adults said yes. Childhood vaccines such as measles, mumps, and rubella should be required. 86% of scientists said yes. Only 68% of adults said yes. Do you favor the increased use of fracking? 31% of scientists said yes. 39% of your average citizens said yes. And for those of you who aren't sure exactly what that is, the dictionary definition actually I find is pretty perfect here. Well, I suppose that's why it's in the dictionary. Fracking is the injection of fluid into shale beds at high pressure in order to free up petroleum resources, such as oil or natural gas. That's actually a totally different topic. I'll cover that at a different time. Next question, actually the last question that really kind of shocked me, because this is finally the one where scientists and your average citizens actually agree, pretty much. The International Space Station has been a good investment for the U.S. 68% of scientists agree, and 64% of your average adults agree. That's not bad. It's only a difference of 4%. I mean, if you think about it, considering the fact that, I mean, in pretty much every other field where people were asked these questions, there was a huge gulf between what your average citizen thought and what scientists thought. It's not bad, actually. But, it maybe kind of gives you a little bit of hope for humanity, but not so much. Anyway, those of you that have been paying attention to the news, you probably noticed that there's been a drought in California recently. I guess you can say this is all about the ingenuity of Americans faced with a crisis. But, Yeah. Just go ahead and read the story here. From the same drought that brought the nation lawn painting comes yet another fad in faux greenery. Fake lawns, nicknamed Frass, are gaining popularity in parched California, which is cracking down on water use. With live grass requiring 55 gallons of water a year per square foot, and with rebates of up to $3.75 a square foot, the so-called frass begins to make sense financially, environmentally, and some say even aesthetically. It feels totally different. Christopher Knight, who you might better know as the actor who played Peter Brady, tells the Washington Post. Frankly, I'm not really sure why more people haven't started doing it. Not everyone is a fan. The environmentally minded wonder about its effect in the waste stream, while others call it tacky. You can't be assured people won't buy the cheapest Home Depot special, gripes the president of one homeowners association that's banned fake grass. Are you going to allow red, white, and blue turf? And the product, though much improved over what the Post calls the preternaturally green stuff that is used to carpet the local miniature golf course, isn't perfect and it can get hot. I leaped off onto the concrete, says a former horticulturist of a recent hot day. I literally would rather walk on concrete. And that's kind of saying something, really. It's what kind of spooks me is I can only assume that this stuff is made out of plastic. And if it gets hot enough where someone would rather walk on concrete than walk on this stuff, that tells me it's getting pretty darn hot, which means it may potentially, eventually, melt. I don't know. I don't know the science behind it, and Lord knows I'm not going to buy any of that stuff. I don't care how nice it looks, unless it looks exactly like real grass. There's no way I would ever buy any of it. But then again, also I don't live in parched California, so I don't have to worry about it. But either way, I'm still just picturing in my mind. I'm picturing the AstroTurf that they described on the mini golf course. It's or like the fake grass that comes in Easter egg baskets. I don't know. That's just what I see in my head when I think of this. But anyway, moving on to my favorite section. Might be a little early for it, but that's fine. This is actually the section that that causes me to require an explicit words warning on my podcast here. But you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to change it. This right here, this guy is the asshole of the week. He wouldn't fit the typical profile of a campus drug dealer, but authorities say a 64-year-old chemistry lab technician at Auburn University was just that. And they say Stephen Howard wasn't just peddling weed, but a date rape drug, reports WTVM. Howard is accused of using his lab credentials to order a chemical that is converted to GHB when ingested, and he allegedly sold 20 ounces of it to an undercover federal agent, and later a gallon. In all, authorities seized 2 to 3 gallons. It's not clear whether Howard had sold any to other customers or whether any students were victims, but an affidavit quotes him as boasting to an undercover agent that he probably had 5 different girls pass out on him. During the second transaction, Howard allegedly flashed a handgun. For that, he faces weapons charges along with his drug trafficking charges. He's still got the job in the College of Engineering for now, but Auburn says it is evaluating Mr. Howard's employment status. I'm sorry, but it's not a question of his employment status so much. It should be a question about his freedom status. These are not the kind of crimes that you let the guy go back to work. I mean, well, I agree. I mean, if the guy was just selling weed, yeah, it's whatever. Let him finish out his job until it's time for him to go to the trial. I'm sorry, but no. If you're selling a date rape drug, no, you don't deserve freedom. You don't deserve your job. Uh, this guy should not be allowed in an academic setting ever again. This guy should not be allowed around children or teenagers or young adults or whatever. He should not be allowed around those people ever again. He should not be allowed around a chemistry set ever again. It's just mind-boggling to me. It hurts my brain to think that this guy is still there. But whatever. It's once again, it's reasons like that that he earns the title of Asshole of the Week. Anyway, speaking of drugs, earlier this month, the city of Pendleton, Oregon, decided to tweak its nuisance ordinance to include a $500 fine for excessive marijuana smoke emanating from a property. Though the New York Daily News notes that marijuana itself becomes legal in Oregon in July. With great relief, Peter Walters saw one scourge on society eliminated and penned a letter to the East Oregonian urging the council to correct the other offensive smell that plagues our community: farts. With that, Walters was off to the races, complaining that while farting may be legal in Oregon, many, including myself, are offended by the flatulent stench, and that habitual farters agree that they need to fart for medical reasons, but that doesn't mean my kids should have to smell their farts, and that the council should stop pretending not to notice. Walters cites a smelly roommate whose recreational farting has been negatively affecting my quality of life for several months now. Unless council takes action, it's as if he who smelt it dealt it. I call on our city council to set aside all other work and address this problem. The letter is getting some attention, and NBC News reports that the city council president appears to be taking it in stride. You have to have a sense of humor regarding the letter, he says. I think it's a matter of, is it taken out of context? Absolutely. This is here to protect the public for the public's right, he says of the pot ordinance. It's not here to infringe on anyone. Now, the sad part is, think about it for a second. It's some of the dumbest news, really. I mean, but the guy is trying to make a point, really. If you think about it, at what point does the smell of weed become offensive? Now, personally, I'm a non-pot smoker myself. I can't stand the stink of it. If I smell it, I get sick and I actually feel nauseous. I feel like I might vomit. But at the same time, if I'm walking down the street in a city where marijuana usage is legal, and I smell it come wafting out of somebody's home, and I feel sick. I feel like I might throw up because of that. I am not within my rights to go up, knock on their door, and tell them to stop. There's really no way to enforce this, just because, like I said, at what point does it become excessive? I mean, you may have somebody much worse off than me walking down the street who just the slightest whiff of it will send them off puking. Whereas you might have somebody else walking down the street. You might have Tommy Chong walking down the street just going, "Hey, man, that's good stuff, huh?" Wow, that was a really bad Tommy Chong. That was more like a senior citizen Bill Clinton. But anyway, moving on. Next story here. Can a passenger with a laptop really electronically hijack a plane via its in-flight entertainment system? That's what security researcher Chris Roberts has confessed to doing, according to an FBI search warrant application. But there's little to indicate that such a thing is possible. A senior law enforcement source tells USA Today that, while he won't comment on the specific case, there is no credible information to suggest an airplane's flight control system can be accessed or manipulated from its in-flight entertainment system. Nevertheless, attempting to tamper with the flight control systems of aircraft is illegal, and any such attempts will be taken seriously by law. Roberts, who allegedly claimed he was able to make the plane briefly fly sideways, tells Forbes he has been advised to stay quiet about the case, though he adds that software that can be accessed through the entertainment system is typically for monitoring only, not influencing. Earlier, he told Wired that the information about the sideways flying was one paragraph out of a lot of discussions. So there's a context that is obviously missing, which obviously I can't say anything about. Boeing appears to agree that such a feat is impossible, at least on its aircraft. Entertainment systems are by design isolated from the other systems on planes, performing critical and essential functions, a representative tells CNET, which notes that Roberts has not been charged with any crime. Now, I'm kind of torn here, because, I mean, yes, technically this guy did not hijack the plane. This guy didn't even have the capability to do so, at least according to Boeing. So yeah, he's innocent in that way, but also, my goodness, pardon. I have to get some coffee or something. The the news story talks about how it's absolutely illegal to even attempt to hijack a plane, or it's illegal to even talk about hijacking a plane. You can't say bomb on an airplane, for example. Everybody knows that too. So yeah, I guess in a way, yeah, this guy should be charged with a crime, but I don't know. Anyway, on something totally different. The latest bit of news out of reality television. The latest piece of the Duggar family's past to come awkwardly bubbling to the surface in the wake of Josh Duggar's child molestation scandal. Back in 2002, family patriarch Jim Bob Duggar ran for the U.S. Senate, and a cached image from his campaign website obtained by Gawker reveals his thoughts on incest. In the section in question, Duggar explains why he believes that even in cases of rape or incest, abortion should not be allowed. Instead of killing the innocent fetus, he says, rape and incest represent heinous crimes and as such should be treated as capital crimes. And keep in mind, some of Josh Duggar's alleged victims, of course, are said to be his own sisters. Meanwhile, Rose McGowan has sort of kind of apologized for misquoting Ted Cruz in relation to the Duggar controversy. The actress tweeted on Sunday, "While there may have been an age difference, Josh Duggar's transgressions are far less an affront to God than what gays do with each other," attributing the quote to the senator. But Snopes revealed the quote as fake, and people started pointing that out to McGowan. Her semi-apology on Twitter read, "I could give a fuck," she said initially, and then, "I'm sorry I said Ted Cruz liked child molesters, okay? No, go back to hating gays, fuckwits." You know, it's things like this that that make me fall in love with Rose McGowan. Now, prior to this, I mean, I could picture her face in my head. I couldn't tell you a single movie she's been in. I know she's been in a few, but couldn't name a single one of them. Couldn't tell you anything about her career. She's awesome now. She's probably one of my favorite female celebrities now. And if she's saying things like this on Twitter, rest assured I'm going to be following her on Twitter now. And you know, I suggest everybody else follows her too. It's definitely it's going to be a good read. As long as she keeps this kind of stuff up, you know, all I can say is keep up the good work, Rose. Keep making us happy. You know, and it's, oh my goodness. Oh, I really need coffee. Well, you know, I got to say it's definitely good that I got that little chuckle in, because these next few stories really hurt. Really hurt a lot to read. We're going to start off here. A Danish radio DJ chose a controversial way of drawing attention to what he sees as the flawed debate over animal welfare. He hit a 9-week-old rabbit named Alan 3 times with an iron bicycle pump while on the air Monday, then wrung its neck. Later, Asker Jewel of Radio 24 SYV ate it for dinner. Angry listeners have since called for a boycott of the station, and much worse for Jewel himself, reports the BBC. I did it to show the hypocrisy in the debate, he says. Many people are outraged by what I did. At the same time, many of these people will eat meat, and when they eat meat, an animal will die. Jewel says he consulted with Aalborg Zoo on a humane way to kill rabbits, and was told it used an iron stick. The zookeeper hits several baby rabbits every week to feed the snakes. Jewel explains, per the local. His employer is unapologetic. The New York Times quotes station editor-in-chief Jorgen Ramskov as saying the rabbit was taken good care of. It had a nice life, and it was killed in a decent way. Animals endure horrific suffering on their way to our dinner tables without it invoking any strong reactions or calls for boycott, a station rep tells Sky News. Perhaps fueling the outcry on social media, per the Times, the station posted 2 videos on its Facebook page. A 20-second clip showing Jewel cradling and petting a very alive Alan, and a 10-second clip showing what the station described as pieces of Alan cooking in a pan. Those 2 parts are important, argued the station in a Facebook post yesterday. We knew that we would be accused of provocation, but it is not an empty provocation. The presenters of the program ate the animal after killing it. And that's once again, just reading that news story was quite painful to me. Just because I kind of agree with the people that were arguing against the station. Calling it, well, I don't know. I can't really say that it was animal cruelty, but at the same time, I don't think that should have been done live on the air. It's like the old adage. I mean, everybody wants to eat sausage, but nobody wants to see how it's made. Same exact idea here. I'm a very happy meat eater. I love me a good steak, but I don't want to go down to the butcher shop and I don't want to go down there and see them kill and slice up a cow just so I can see my sirloin being made. No. I just want to go down to the grocery store, pick out a nice T-bone, and bring it home and eat it. Is that really too much to ask? That's it. That's plain and simple. That's all I want. So it's... Once again, he does bring a point, though. There is cruelty, but there isn't a stink being raised about it because we're unaware of it. Blissfully unaware, some may call it, but whatever. Moving on. Here we go. I got something that's actually not as painful to read. Pandas have been munching on bamboo for 7 million years, and exclusively for 2 million years. So it was a big surprise when researchers analyzed 121 fecal samples from 45 giant pandas and found gut bacteria not at all designed to process the animal's food of choice. Though pandas developed powerful jaws and teeth to break down up to 28 pounds of bamboo per day, the samples showed pandas process only 17% of the bamboo they eat, meaning they can't extract maximum energy, mainly because their gut bacteria is meant to process meat, the Los Angeles Times and the BBC report. Rather than house bacteria common in herbivores that need to break down fiber, the panda's guts featured I a couple different kinds of bacteria, similar to bacteria found in meat-eating bears used to process protein. Unlike other plant-eating animals that have successfully evolved anatomically specialized digestive systems to effectively deconstruct fibrous plant matter, the giant panda still retains a gastrointestinal tract typical of carnivores. Over time, other herbivores developed longer guts or produced enzymes that helped them break down plants. But whereas cows have four-chambered stomachs that help in plant digestion, pandas have only simple stomachs and short intestines. They also have extremely low diversity in their gut microbiome, which researchers think could indicate an animal is less resilient to changes in their environment. That's especially bad news for pandas that lead a highly fragile lifestyle in a shrinking habitat. This combination of factors may have increased their risk of extinction. There are thought to be just over 1,600 giant pandas left in the wild. Wow. It's pretty sad when you think about it. But it also shows that evolution is not this targeted process that some people seem to think it is. Evolution is not necessarily about getting better at what we do. Evolution is more just about random chance. Just the fact that, the pandas haven't died off yet, that really doesn't mean anything. Realistically, they were doing fine until we got there, but either way, we're coming into the last 7 minutes or so here. So let's go on to the final story here. This one comes from a website that, personally, if I had power over the internet, this site would no longer exist. But since I don't, really about all I can do is come back to this site some other time. I'm definitely going to have to come back. I'll visit this site for the next episode. The website is biblicalgenderroles.com. This particular article is called, "Is a Husband Selfish for Having Sex with His Wife When She's Not in the Mood?" Feminists, and even some women who would not consider themselves feminists, believe it is selfish for a man to have sex with his wife knowing that she's not in the mood. In fact, some claim if a man has sex with his wife when she's not in the mood, this is rape. This is a question that many Christian men are afraid to ask. Here we will try to answer this very important question from a biblical perspective. Yeah, because, nothing but good can come from this particular bit then. In our last post in this series of how to be a... Oh my God, there's a series. How to be a godly husband, we established the fact that as a Christian husband, you do not have to earn sex with your wife any more than your wife has to earn sex with you. I took a beating from several people, even from some Christians who might 95% agree with me, because they thought I was not adding enough disclaimers about this right of sex in marriage. But I stand by what I wrote. I feel that today we make far too many excuses for the sin of sexual denial in marriage, and as men of God, we must address this issue without pulling punches. Yeah. Sex is both a right and a responsibility in marriage. Moses, speaking under the direct inspiration of God, was the first to speak of the importance of sex in marriage. If he takes an additional wife, he must not reduce the food, clothing, or marital rights of the first wife. And if he does not do these three things for her, she may leave free of charge without any exchange of money. That's from the book of Exodus, chapter 21, verses 10 through 11. I love the fact that that's the passage that he uses to reinforce his argument, because that has nothing to do with the biblical beliefs on marriage. The idea of one man, one woman, that that the Christians and Catholics are so proud of touting. This is actually one man and more than one woman. If he takes an additional wife, he must not reduce the... If he takes an additional wife, where is polygamy legal? Where is it legal? Nowhere. Whatever. The Apostle Paul, later in the New Testament, elaborates on this right and responsibility of sex in marriage, making it clear that both husbands and wives have the right to and responsibility for sex in marriage. This is from 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 7 through 5. A wife does not have the right over her own body, but her husband does. In the same way, a husband does not have the right over his own body, but his wife does. Do not deprive one another sexually, except when you agree for a time to devote yourselves to prayer, then come together again. Otherwise, Satan may tempt you because of your lack of control. Holy crap. The phrase... The sad part is, this is actually not even me talking. This is this guy continuing with his argument. And it's weird because it goes... The phrase, a wife does not have the right over her own body, but her husband does, could not be clearer. A wife does not have the right to stand and deny her husband access to her body. As I said in the previous post, a wife can humbly ask for a delay or a rain check, but only for legitimate physical or psychological reasons, and the judge of what is legitimate or not is her husband. Holy crap. This is actually a huge, big, long story. I'm going to just scroll through here and try and basically quote mine, I guess you could say, because... Oh, here we go. What I mean by not in the mood and by you ought to take it. The haters of the fact that God says sex is to occur if either the husband or wife want it will immediately scream rape when I tell you as a Christian husband that you ought to take the sex from your wife even if she's not in the mood. The little phrase they neglect that I have stated is, if she yields. I am not advocating for a husband to physically force his wife to have sex with him. Actually, buddy, you are. You just said that on the last thing that I quoted. I will address the situation if she does not yield in my next post. Oh, I am so reading the next post. But I will say this. Despite American laws to the contrary, biblically speaking, there is no such thing as marital rape. In the scriptures, the only way rape occurs is if a man forces himself on a woman who is not his property, which is to say, not his wife or concubine. A man's wives, his concubines, which are slave wives taken as captives of war or bought, could be made to have sex with him, no questions asked. Holy crap. I'm sorry, but it's reasons like this that religion should be overthrown. Just my opinion, I could be wrong. Anyway, looks like we're running out of time here. This has been Brain Power. As usual, if you have a story you'd like covered here or a question you'd like answered, send me a message on Twitter at BrainPowerUp. Use the hashtag BrainPowerUp. Like the group at facebook.com/BrainPowerOnline or visit the website at brainpoweronline.webs.com.